everybody. My name is Niamh and I am here with Niall McAlinden. Niall is the face behind Thrive with Niall. I am a past client from Thrive and I have worked with Niall, I suppose, over the last number of years from 2019. But we have a bit of role reversal today. Niall is in the hot seat and I'm going to be asking him some questions. So, Niall, how are you?
Good, very good, Niamh.
Good,
How are
yeah.
you?
Good, yeah, it's good to see you. First of all, for anyone who's maybe watching this who is not familiar with Thrive at all, or perhaps has heard from it or heard of people doing it, what exactly is Thrive?
So the Thrive program is essentially a psychoeducational training program. It's all about teaching people the skills, the knowledge, and resources that teaches people to thrive. Essentially, clearly, a lot of people, when it comes to mental health, they generally only address their mental health when it's really bad or when they're really struggling with certain symptoms. Now, obviously, a lot of people that contact me that they definitely fit into this sort of category. However, this program's for everybody. It's about optimizing your well-being, your mental well-being, your psychological, emotional well-being. Hence the reasons why it's called the Thrive program. It's not called the Overcome Your Anxiety program. It's all about teaching you the skills, the education, the knowledge you need to optimize your mental health ingredients essentially and learn to thrive.
So you're saying it's bigger than just anxiety. So what other symptoms might someone come to you with that you would be able to help them?
The most common symptoms, Niamh, I would say, would be depression, anxiety, panic attacks, fears, phobias, things like OCD. There's a lot of people these days struggling with like unhelpful behaviors, like what they would call like addictive type behaviors, like mobile phones, um, drugs, porn, other things like alcohol, um, even things like being obsessive, even with like the gym or being obsessive about things in life in general, and it consumes them. That's definitely, I think, become a lot more common now than it did over the last 5, 10 years. I've noticed there's been a steady increase in people becoming very obsessive with certain things, and that's largely, I think, due to low self-esteem. People lack identity. They lack identity. They lack confidence in themselves, and they generally feel quite out of control. And we live in a world now where the standards of living are getting higher and higher, and people's watching people on social media all the time, and then they think that's the way I should be, and they become so obsessive they latch on to things. And it does give them that sense of identity, that sense of purpose, that sense of control. It's just sometimes it crosses the line and it becomes too much and stressful, and there's sometimes there's a lot of symptoms that come with that. But I would say the most common ones would be anxiety, depression, panic attacks, fears, phobias, eating disorders, OCD, and yeah, obsessive thinking, obsessive behaviors, and people just generally not feeling fulfilled.
Would you notice there's actually a bigger rise in it now from COVID?
Probably. I don't notice a massive difference, and I don't know the stats on it, Niamh, but I would definitely say that I think social anxiety's got increased a lot in the last 5 years. I think I noticed in the year post COVID when when lockdowns were lifted. I think I noticed there was a big increase because a lot of people with social anxiety they stayed in their house then in their safe zone, and I think a lot of people then got very comfortable with that. And you yourself, like if you're in a social setting, you feel more out of control, and there's more emphasis on your social confidence, your coping skills, your self-esteem, etc., etc. So I think people got very rusty with their coping skills. In a social setting, I think people got used to isolating themselves and being very safe and comfortable.
And we're told to as well.
And we're told to, yeah, well, yeah,
Yeah.
like obviously it was out of people's control. So I think then stepping back into a working environment and seeing people every day, you're used to doing it via Zoom or doing it on Teams or something,
Yeah.
and it was safe. There's less exposure there in
Mm.
terms of managing your
Turn your
emotions.
camera off.
Exactly. You can turn the camera off and you can
Yeah.
hide a lot.
Yeah.
What COVID done is it fed a lot of people's desire for control, their need for safety and predictability. And if you do that a lot in your life, you also feed your powerlessness, your lack of coping skills, because you need to get out there and learn to cope. It's a skill after all. So people's skills get very rusty, and I think that I did notice after COVID, a lot of people got their social anxiety was skyrocketing, where people were having issues with going back into the office, going out for nights out, or just social events, whether it be a family or a work event, whatever. I definitely noticed that. And some people just haven't really recovered from that. Because they've become very controlled, and they've found it difficult to branch away from that and get back to where they were at, I think.
Yeah, fair. You mentioned psychoeducation. Why is that such a key element to the Thrive program?
Really good question, Niamh. I think when it comes to mental health, a lot of people lack an understanding of their mind and what mental health actually is. Like mental health and mindset, I often talk about them interchangeably. A lot of people think they're two completely separate things, um, whereas they're both linked. And I think when it comes to mental health, a lot of the interventions are geared not to actually educate a person to understand their mind and what's actually going on inside their head and why they're thinking, feeling, behaving the way they are, but rather just to focus on the symptoms and teach them coping techniques or breathing techniques, or when you're feeling X, go and do Z, or taking things like, we look at all the most common treatments. And I've nothing against treatments or anything, but you can't run away from the fact that mental health treatments globally are not very successful. And there's a perfectly predictable reason or reasons for that. They either focus on things external, or else they focus on your symptoms. And if you focus on either of these two things predominantly, you're setting yourself up for a battle, for a life of struggling with your problems generally here. Um, you can't change external things. There's very obviously, when people talk about the past, their childhood and stuff like that, and of course there's things in people's past and there's things in people's lives that have been traumatic, unhelpful, that are difficult, 100%. But what I talking about here is the value, the purpose, the point of continuously talking about these things. The benefit, people might get some temporary relief or release, but it's not really helpful long term. So I think what people need to really start to learn, if they're looking to make significant growth with their mental health, they need to learn the why. What I mean by the why is what's actually going on here, so things make sense. If you're constantly blaming external things, this is mental health. We're talking about, this is mental health, by the way. Yeah. So why would you talk
Mm.
about things constantly that's outside of your mind? When it comes to mental health, you want to talk about your mind. You want to talk about your mental state. And that there isn't enough focus, I think, generally speaking, in the world when it comes to the main interventions on learning about the mind. And also the thing about learning about the mind is you're focusing on things you have control over, things that you can actually develop. You can't change the past, you can't change the weather, you can't change X, Y, and Z. So I think people, when they start to develop the psychoeducation, that they start learning about the key working components within their mental health, they start to things start to make sense, and they start to get a sense of control. And that's when they start to develop these areas. That's the how, the why, and the how I talk about. When they start to develop the how to change, that's when they start to grow.
Interesting. I remember when I was doing the Thrive program, and before, I don't know whether you'd remember this or not, but whenever I first came to you, I'd been to counselling and I'd tried all the therapies. And
Yeah.
I remember someone saying to me, "You can just, like, something had happened and just go to counselling." Do I need to go to counselling every single time something happens to me?
Mm-hmm.
Like, I should be able to manage these myself. What am I doing differently? And the first time I ever came into the cube, and one of the first things you'd ever said to me was about, like, it's within your control. It's in, this is how we're going to do it. And I remember thinking, that's it. It was like a light bulb moment.
Yes.
So to me, having had been, and I'm sure people will relate with this, but having had been to counselling and other therapies before, I knew what you meant when you started to go through the Thrive program with me. And that's just something I suppose I just wanted to ask you was, like, what is the difference between Thrive and other, I suppose, standard forms of therapy or counselling that people may go to, which you've touched on, obviously, but
Yes, I think primarily a lot of treatments focus on the external and triggers and blaming or attributing your problems to things external, which obviously these things, as I say, they clearly do have some sort of impact, Neve. Um, but I do question the value and the benefit of constantly going back there. It's a little bit like this. It's not exactly like it, but imagine, for example, like we were talking about my back there. I was in a car accident when I was 18, and I have disc damage and stuff since. But I've went to 3 or 4 specialists, and not one of them have sat saying to me, right, where'd this come from? We need to talk about where this. We need to find out when this happened, because it's irrelevant. When I say it's irrelevant, it doesn't impact, or it doesn't have any direct impact upon how they're going to treat it now and moving forward. All they want to see is a scan. All they want to see is an X-ray. They want to find out what the damage is now. How you actually got there is largely irrelevant to them. Now, that's not to say that the car accident wasn't a big ordeal or that didn't wasn't the root driving force behind the problem. It was. But what's the value in me sitting down and going, "Oh, it was awful," and this happened to me, and it banged me in the back, and I've had so much trouble since, and blah 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 blah. There's no value in that. I could go every single week to the specialist and talk about the pain and the accident and rehash it over and over again. My back's not improving anything, and that's the thing when it comes to mental health. There is this sort of um, belief that in order to move forward, you have to talk about your problems and you have to talk about to release this emotion, which isn't true, by the way, in any way, shape, or form. You need to do that in order to move forward. That's not true, and I think modern science and research has shown that there's much better and more accurate and more efficient and more effective ways of helping people with their mental health. I think just a lot of the interventions haven't caught up. A lot of the mental health interventions like medication, therapy, counseling, a lot of them haven't changed in the last 20, 30, 40, 50, 60, 70, 80 years. And there, as I said, there's a lot of research that shows there's much more resourceful, helpful, empowering ways of helping people with their mental health.
Okay. With that in mind, then, what about your role as a coach? How do you guide someone through the program?
Yeah, well, clearly the program is a very active program in terms of from the client's point of view, and that sort of ties into the question that we spoke about previously, Niamh. A lot of times when people go to therapy, they go to the GP or they take medication or they go to therapy or counseling. They're hoping that the therapist or the hypnosis or whatever the whatever or the medication does something to me. I'm hoping it helps me. It needs to fix me, which is also back to what you said there. Every time you have a problem, you need to run back to your therapist or run back to your counselor. This is completely different in the sense that this is about you taking control of your mental health. So essentially, you learn the psychoeducation in the program. Obviously, I'm there as a coach to facilitate that and educate that and coach that. But you learn that yourself and you make the change, you make the transition, which is why the program is not only educational, it's also practical based, as you know yourself. So that's why the results of the program are not only greater than them things I've mentioned, but also their life, their life changing and their life lasting, if that makes sense.
Yeah, it's a doing thing.
It's a doing thing, yeah, because you make the change, you develop the skill set, you have the knowledge. Now, yes, people can have blips and people can go through periods and life can challenge them, etc., etc. However, it's generally speaking, it's much more life lasting and life changing because you've made the change. It comes from within you rather than this idea that, oh, now it's doing something to me or this program's just worked for me. Yeah, clearly that doesn't happen.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's more about you, the client. It's an active thing on your behalf, which is why the person's commitment is key.
Yeah. Well, it's like even me sitting here now, had you said even 2 years ago, I suppose, before
Yeah.
the wee blip, like to be sitting here today interviewing you, pushing both of us out of our comfort zones. No, it's if you know, you know. It's it very much is a doing thing, but it starts and ends with you, which I've said before. So do you think that there's a time that should the Thrive program work for everybody, or is there maybe a time when it's maybe just not appropriate for a particular individual?
Good question, Niamh. I think, look, everybody in the world would benefit from the knowledge and the actions and the excuse me, the skills that you get from the program. There's no doubt about that. Because it's different. It's different in the sense that the vast majority of people have never had any psychoeducational training or in-depth coaching in this area or mindset development. I know that people sort of go to things where it's quite trivial and quite, what's the word I'm looking for, like vague or reactive. But I think, look, everybody I've worked with has got a lot of value from the program. I would like to think so. The feedback I get, obviously, from my clients doing the program is incredible. It's absolutely incredible. Every single day of my life, when I'm driving home from work, I'm thinking like, "Whoa, it's just incredible." And you can see it obviously in people every week. Like even simple things. I had a conversation this morning with a 74-year-old client who has struggled with her mental health for 55 years.
Wow.
Yeah, she struggled with her mental health for 55 years. Anxiety, constant states of anxiety.
It doesn't matter what age you are.
No, exactly. Chronic depression, eating related issues, obsessive thinking, all that sort of stuff for
Wow.
over 50 years. And like she's 8 weeks into Thrive and like she's absolutely flying,
Wow.
completely flying. Like says it's life changing. I
That's
actually
amazing.
posted the message she sent me earlier on my Instagram there. Um, and like that was somebody who absolutely didn't believe that this. She never believed really she could make progress. Thought this was part of me. I'm gonna live the rest of my life like this. This is just who I am. And I think seeing it just 8 weeks into the program and she's making big, big strides. So it's not for me, Niamh, to answer that question. It's not can everybody benefit from the course. I think they can, but you have to do the program. It's a doing course. You can't come in and be passive. You can't come in and go, right, I've heard this program is great, or I've heard Niall's brilliant. I hope they do something to me here. I'm waiting for something to happen here.
Mm-hmm.
You know, largely it's a doing program, and you have to dedicate the time and follow my lead and take it step by step. You know the way I work. It's quite you have to do it this way. If you
But
do your
there's a
own
reason you
thing,
do it that way.
or yeah, exactly,
Yeah.
and it works. So I can't 100% control the outcome of it because it's not me doing it. I'm there to be the coach to facilitate and educate. And if the person commits, look, you know yourself, the sessions are loads of fun. It's great crack, and it's a very enjoyable journey. Um, but if you start doing your own thing or whatever, that's where it becomes complicated. There's also obviously some people who have, you know, like things like schizophrenia, psychosis, things like that, where, it does become difficult then because the headspace they're in and the emotional arousal that they have every day, the intense stress or anxiety can mean it's very, very difficult to actually concentrate and do this program. You also look at people like even people who are like autistic, and other things like people with ADHD. It just makes it a little bit potentially more difficult. But absolutely, would they benefit from the program? Absolutely.
I'm going to change the angle slightly now, Niall. So it's Niall personally as a coach. Um, what first drew you to want to work with mental health and mindset coaching?
Well, it wasn't something, Nave, that as a young as a teenager, I never thought I would be in this type of job or role or career. I sort of just fell into it myself. I think obviously you're talking 20 years ago when I was a teenager. I didn't really know it at the time. I wasn't consciously aware of it at the time, but I did struggle. And this will be a surprise to people close to me. But or I was going to say it definitely will be, but maybe not. To some, but I definitely was struggling a little bit. I was quite anxious. I did struggle with my thoughts and feelings. Obviously, back then you don't really know what a thought is or a feeling is. You know what I mean? There was none of that sort of type of language or conversation that was discussed, especially not amongst society or my friends or anything. So I was unaware of it at the time. I think it was only really when I went to university and things folded badly. And I think the thing about it is, Neve, I always had a good circle of friends. I played football. Had a good family life, and yeah, so it would have been very hard to spot or to see. But I suppose it was only when I was out of that environment and I lived in Belfast that a lot of the areas of my mental health that wasn't great were exposed a little bit more. And I changed. When I say I changed, it was just exposed. I didn't cope very well. I was struggling a lot with unhelpful thoughts every day and feelings, and I didn't know how to deal with it and manage it. I felt like I wasn't good enough. I felt like I was failing at life, which I was actually because I started drinking a lot, and I basically drank. I would say nearly almost every single day for 2 or 3 years.
Wow.
Now that when I say drink, I mean I got drunk nearly every single day for 3 years, and that is no exaggeration. Like I know when you're in uni and stuff, you're in that environment. Most people drink anyway. Um, but if any of my housemates weren't going out for a night out or something, I would have found somebody else. You know what I mean? I would have texted somebody, or and somebody might watch this and think I'm exaggerating. I'm definitely not. I drank, and I even hid drinking sometimes. Went up to my room with a drink, or I just wanted to escape, Neve. And things obviously inevitably got worse then. And even when I came home at the weekends, I would have found people to go out with on a Friday night and Saturday night, and then I was back to Belfast. on Sunday, and then I would have had a few pints or a few bottles, and obviously that only leads to going downhill, and then it shit hit the fan. Then I had to come back home again, and I actually slept on the sofa. I remember this. I slept on the sofa in my parents' house for about 8 months. I didn't go to bed, and obviously my family and my parents knew something wasn't right. Um, and I knew then that I needed some help. I knew that things weren't good, and I needed to seek some help. I did at that time, and to be honest with you, Niamh, it didn't. The people and the things I went to didn't really make any sense to me. I didn't. I never really got the. I never. It never really made sense to me why I would sit and talk to somebody about my past, or everyone kept saying to me, "Oh, this has to be a reason for this." And like I had a brilliant childhood. My family life was really good. My friends, I'd never had any hardship or difficulty. And like if you looked at my life, I played football, etc., etc. There was nothing there really that would have that a counselor or somebody could pinpoint and say, oh, it's that or it's this. So when people kept saying to me, oh, it's got to do with your past and blah blah blah, I just kept thinking, what are you talking about? And then they were encouraging me to talk about how I felt all the time, and it didn't really make any sense to me. Like I wanted answers and I wanted solutions. And when I started to delve into this sort of intervention, I kept saying to them, I need you know mental health better than me, so I need you to tell me what's going on here. Because if you
Yeah.
go to the mechanic, you might tell him that you've got a noise in the car, but you don't tell him how to do the job. Like you don't try and go, right, no, well, this is what you need to do. You don't do the work. But when I went to intervention, it sort of got the sense that I was doing the work. I had to sit and talk and blah blah blah, and I didn't really feel much benefit for that. I wanted to learn about me and understand why I was like this. It didn't make any sense to me, and that was essentially what uh, I gravitated towards, wanting more a different type of treatment or intervention, and that was what brought me to coaching and psychoeducation and Thrive, and then um, yeah, it wasn't something though that I thought straight away that all this is going to be a career for me. It was only when I really started to get into it and I seen the benefit of it, and I thought, yeah, and I had a massive passion, and I love helping people. That's what still drives me every day. And if you know what I'm like as a coach,
I
there,
do.
yeah, there is a real pleasure I get from helping people in terms of their lives and seeing results, and driving home every day knowing that your the feedback's good and you're seeing people grow and evolve and stuff. And I sort of just thought, yeah, this is something that I could do. I was also very, when I say good at it, it clicked with me straight away. I just got it.
Light bulb moment.
Yeah, well, it just, for me, it just was like, yeah, this is the missing piece of the jigsaw that I needed, and I understood it very
Mm-mm.
quickly, and I was able to articulate it to other people, and I thought, yeah, this is something that comes very natural to me, and it's something that I could definitely be good at. And when I started being a coach, when I got qualified and then started to be a coach, I set up practices here in Dungannon, Inniskillen, and Coleraine. And to be honest, I didn't really know where it was going to lead to, and it just boomed straight away. It just boomed, and you know, uh, yeah, the rest is history, really.
Thank you so much for sharing that. I am sure that anyone listen will you'll surprise most people, I would say, who don't know about that. To know that you're not a robot and you
Mm,
aren't just thriving every day magically,
yeah.
which we know doesn't happen anyway. But no, appreciate that. Because most
Thank you.
people do have some sort of a story, and it's a lot to open up. So
It's not something, as you know, Neve.
yeah,
Obviously, you know me particularly well. It's not something I've ever probably spoke about to you before. Not that I don't like speaking about it. It's just not something I ever really disclose. I suppose I'm never really in this side of the seat. I'm always the coaching side, so it's not really something really I ever really feel the need to share. But um, yeah, sometimes obviously it's good for others to hear that sort of context.
mhm. What motivates you to keep working in this role?
The first thing that came to my mind there is, I think in today's world it's an absolute disgrace that the vast majority of people don't have any idea what's going on in their mind.
Very true.
Yeah,
Yeah,
every single day,
we just
like
believe our thoughts.
the yeah, well, they don't. I mean, most people see mental health as this thing where it's like, oh, mental health is this thing. You've got an illness. If you've poor mental health, you've got this thing. You've got this illness. and you're a victim to it, and you know there's nothing you can do about it, or you have to cope with it for the rest of your life. And that, in the vast majority of cases, Niamh, is not true in any way, shape, or form. And I get frustrated because I'm looking around. So many people are taking medication or going to certain treatments, and they're being told all sorts. That is just not true. Like, oh, you're born this way. This is the way you're always going to be. You have to cope with panic attacks. You're depressed, and this is the way you're going to have to cope with this rest of your life. This is caused by X, Y, and Z, and you have to take drugs to rebalance your serotonin and all that sort of stuff. And a lot of that true is absolutely not true in any way, shape, or form. And what that does is it renders people powerless. It renders people powerless. And in my mind, I'm thinking every single one, or the vast majority of them people, would massively benefit, from doing this program. I have no doubt about it. I see it. I've worked with thousands of people. I see it every single day, Niamh. And that's what ignites a fire in me. There's so many people I'm looking at online, and they're saying, oh, all this stuff. And I know, look, it's not their fault as such, in terms of it's a lot of people believe a lot of nonsense when it comes to mental health. And look, I empathize with everybody who struggles with their mental health. I did for many years. But mental health generally is a lot more predictable than what people think. And what's lacking in the vast majority, in most cases, is education. And there's a far more helpful, more empowering way to helping people, and that's providing them with some skills and some solutions and some answers, rather than saying, "Oh, we don't really know why you're like this," and then slapping people with labels and saying, "Go and take them drugs." I mean, that's just not acceptable. And I think the what motivates me is, I believe that what this program can give people is a gold. Like, it's literally life changing, and I think that there's not enough people out there that know about this, and the value of it.
Yeah, I agree. Totally agree. Having been through it myself, you don't realize how powerful you are as a human being, because we've probably been brought up to believe that to fit into a certain box and all that.
Yeah.
As a coach, what would be the most important skills that you have as a person that you feel makes the difference in the Thrive program and doing the Thrive program?
I think I'm very honest
Yes,
with
you are.
everybody. Yeah, I'm very honest. I think anyone that works with me, I would like them to see that Niall wants me to do well here, and he has got a genuine desire to help me. I think that's definitely one of the things that I would hear a lot. I'm obviously very passionate. I think when you hear me coaching, you know me, Niamh, in terms of you've seen me coaching before. Um, it's something that I strongly believe in, and I think that comes across as well. Again, linked to the first one there, I think people can feel that. Um, I also think I'm very knowledgeable, in terms of I know my stuff inside out. And I think that being able to, when you're dealing with a client, being able to explain things or articulate things or say things at the right time, or say it in a way that makes sense to the individual, and with analogies or examples or whatever suits them, I think that is definitely one of the most important skills as a coach. And I think I'm fairly good at that. And I think definitely that it's very difficult to rate yourself as a coach, or to look at yourself as a coach, because people say to me all the time, people obviously give me feedback in terms of, oh, Niall, you're brilliant, or whatever, or, and it's difficult to know what it is specifically you do that makes that, or that is so brilliant. But I think on reflection, I think there's a genuine, I think people can feel it. There's a genuine desire there to help people. And he's very knowledgeable, and he's able to improvise and talk with people. And also is that there's no BS. I think people sometimes come in, and maybe if people have been to other things before, and they sort of half-arse do them, or they think, oh, I can go in and I can see Niall here, and hopefully this program works for me, and we'll see what happens, and we'll sort of be quite passive, and we'll drift through it. Niamh, that just never works with me. And that's one of the reasons why I think people get a lot of success here, because you either do it or you don't. And if I see anybody doing things that is holding them back from getting results, we'll have a conversation about it in a friendly way. Yeah, in a good way. I'm not going to turn around and busting through the door saying, it's not about that. My job as a coach is to help knock down the barriers and make it as easy for you as possible, and for the client as possible. So that's my job. If I see you doing something where I'm thinking, oh no, that's not good, I wouldn't sleep at night
Mm.
without saying something.
You also can see that really clearly as well with people. Someone who's putting in the effort versus someone who's maybe just not giving it what they need to be giving it. Like, it's clear.
Yeah.
And you're always very much straight down the line with that, which I think it's important.
Yeah.
People don't want that, the fluffy stuff. They want you to just tell me like it is, that this is the way it's going to be, because that's how ultimately you're going to get to your
results.
goal.
Yeah. 100%.
So you would say then that is probably something that sets you apart from other coaches, is how you actually articulate yourself whenever you're carrying out the Thrive program with people.
Well, it's very, very difficult. Look, I'm not here to say that. Look at me, I'm a wonderful coach. Look, I don't know. I'm not in other coaches sessions, or I'm not in the therapy room with people, or whatever it may be. I can only focus on me, Niamh, and I only focus on what I do. Obviously, I ask for feedback all the time from every single person I work with, and I'm always trying to evolve as a coach. I'm always looking in myself to see what I can do to improve and what I can do to evolve and become a better coach. And yeah, I can only focus on myself, Niamh, in terms of that. I think they are probably my main skill sets, I would say, in comparison to other trainers or coaches or whatever. I can't speak for them.
I can speak for some people, I suppose, but for me, I found, having been through other avenues, that you have been pivotal in, and I know that the Thrive program has been, me doing it has been obviously the biggest thing, but having you there and your support and how you help people learn how to do the Thrive program, and to learn to thrive, and the support that you give even thereafter,
Thank you,
the Thrive is second to none. And I think that's probably why people find it easier to reach out to you even after it, and even today.
I think on that note, need just, based on what you said, I'm going to take you as an example, right? The reason that was easy for you is because you were easier to connect with, or you were easy to connect with, because when you came in to see me, you were very honest with me. You wanted some help. You told me what it was like, or what your reality was like, and when you done the program, you were very genuine. Right? There was no arriving late, messing about, cutting corners, etc., etc. You were very genuine, and you were to the point. I can connect with anybody that's like that. It's more difficult when people start doing their own thing, or they're arriving late, or they're not committed, or that's when I find it difficult, because that person's becoming harder to coach. I'm the coach. I can't do it for people, and then I have to start chasing people, and I don't like that. And so our relationship isn't just based on the way I am. It's based on two people coming together, and the more committed and the better your attitude is, the more genuine you are, then look, we'll get on like a house on fire. But I think that if I'm looking at somebody like yourself, I get on really well with, and other clients it's a little bit more difficult. It tends to be because on their side there's things they're doing behind closed doors that I'm like thinking, and then that caused me to chase them and stuff, and nobody wants that, obviously.
That was actually something I was going to ask you about as well. Is there a time when maybe working with a client is a wee bit more difficult or challenging versus other clients? You've maybe kind of answered that, have you?
Not exactly. I suppose I have a little bit. Look, the most important thing for me when I'm working with everybody is that this person is going to do the program. I've said many times I could teach a monkey to thrive if they're committed to it. Yeah, like if you come every week and you do the homework and you've got a genuine desire to improve your life, you will learn to thrive. The process is tremendously predictable, right? So, but it requires you to do it, right? If when I look at people that are more difficult, to use your terminology, it tends to be because they're making excuses, or they're bluffing behind closed doors, or they're doing something they shouldn't be, essentially. That's not doing the program. And that's when it becomes difficult. It's like, think of it this way. Imagine you're going to a personal trainer. Or imagine you're a personal trainer and there's a program to follow. And at the weekends, they're eating rubbish all weekend. And then they're missing their Monday class. And then, they're coming in on a Friday going, sorry, I've put on 2 pounds this week. That's a difficult person to coach, because they're not doing the program, not following the steps. If you follow the steps, it'll be, we'll connect, get on like a house on fire. And it's loads of fun. You know yourself, the program's fun. But it does become more difficult, I think, when that process isn't followed. And that's why we have a consultation, so we can sit down and explain all that. And because I want to ensure that the person knows what the program entails and what the requirements in terms of commitment. because if they do and they're committed to it, you'll not look back.
Yeah, yeah, very good. Um, how do you balance being supportive, um, but also, I suppose, not colluding with someone or challenging that person to grow?
Um, I suppose no one giving them enough rope to realize that they're the ones that's doing the program, and get them to realize that, like, I'm here as the coach and I'm here to facilitate. But if you text me every day or you're ringing me every time you have a problem, then that's not my job. I'm not here to babysit you or to hold your hand all the time. I think it doesn't really. This isn't really an issue, I would say, Niamh, because in session one, you know, everything's laid out for people. They can understand what it is. They know what this program is by session one. So I don't really get much of an issue in that regard.
Yeah,
Um,
so you set out clearly then
yeah,
at the
clearly
start.
how the
Yeah, yeah.
process works and what's
What
involved,
you
and
expect at the
obviously the
beginning. Yeah,
homework, etc. So it's
okay.
very, I make it as idiot proof and as black and white as
Yeah,
possible. Like, so people, they know that this isn't about, especially in that first 6 weeks when you're learning, they know it's not about texting me every time you've a bad day, or text me every time something happens, or every time you don't understand something, or when you have a bad thought, texting Niall or ringing Niall. They know it's not like that. Um, and also as well, which is sometimes can be difficult. Obviously, some of my clients come in and they've just got bad news, or they've they're going through a tough time. You know, maybe they're really struggling emotionally. Maybe they're, you know, they've got maybe they've got depression or anxiety attacks or something. And it's about realizing that's having a big impact upon their life and acknowledging that. It's not about sitting here for me and going, "Oh, this is terrible," you know, blah blah blah. It's about acknowledging it and having a lot of empathy for that, but at the same time, then thinking, right, well, I've got a solution for you here, and this is it, and this is what we're going to do, and then focusing on the solution. My my role as a coach is to get you to, as much as possible, to, this is what you need to do to move forward, and if you follow this solution, obviously it's not about ignoring the reality of the issue. It's about, this is what we need to do for you to get out of that issue and to overcome it. And I think that's why it then becomes on, right, let's start focusing on action and moving forward with it.
yeah. So just another, I suppose, another wee question. If someone is going through a challenge in time, like sort of like what you've just said, if someone comes into you and maybe something's happened in that meantime, it's not about just thriving and it not affecting you. It's about learning to tolerate feelings during that time and then move forward.
Yeah.
Yeah.
If somebody, there's two things here. If somebody is going through, something's happened very recently and they've contacted me, um, my first thing to ascertain would be, are they in a headspace to do this right now? Because they have to, it's all about the individual.
Mm-hmm.
I'm not interested in clients, I'm interested in successful clients. So again, that's one of the reasons why we have the consultation, so we can sit down and ascertain, okay, is this person, if something's happened, are they in a headspace, and also from an emotional point of view, to concentrate in here and do the homework and actually implement what they're learning. Like, it's happened many times over the last few years where I've just said to, to people, you're not in the right headspace now, or you're too stressed, or maybe they've just lost a job, and I don't know, or somebody's died or something in the last 2 weeks, and they're in a really bad place, and they're really struggling to get out of bed or something. Um, to protect the person, I would say, look, let this level off a little bit, and then what we'll do is, in a few weeks' time or in a few months' time, when you're in a bit of a better, more clear headspace, and
Mm-hmm.
you're not as controlled by your strong emotions, then I think you'll be in a better position to do this program, I think.
Okay.
Um, what was the question again, Niamh? It was about the when things
Oh,
have just happened.
if something's
Oh
just
yes, that
happened
was
and
it.
how you.
Also, when things have just happened, clearly you're going to be affected if external events are tough. It's not about being robotic. This isn't about, obviously, um, being positive all the time and smiling every day. And your life, you just think every thought being brilliant, and you just feeling brilliant and
Mm,
wonderful. That's like
yeah,
toxic, and I don't think
yeah,
that's very helpful. Sometimes life is tough, and
mm,
sometimes life is difficult, and a huge thriving skill is having the skill set to respond in a powerful sense, in a way that's resourceful, in a way that you can overcome or manage or process that in a powerful
yeah,
sense, rather than letting it beat you down, and then massive symptoms, and then I had no turn to crutches.
Snowballing,
Yeah.
effectively, yeah. So, Niall, who are you behind the Thrive program? What does your life look like outside of work?
I have three young kids, a 3-year-old, a 2-year-old, and an 11-month-old tomorrow.
Busy?
So things are really busy, yeah, with family life. And obviously, I'm married to my wife, Rachel. So a lot of my life outside of work is with my family, which I love, clearly, very much so. But it's busy,
Mm.
and it has its challenges along with the busyness and with changing nappies and feeding and nighttime and early mornings and things like that. But I wouldn't have it any other way. It's a huge part. It's everything in my life. Family is everything to me. So it's busy. Also, I like playing golf. I like watching sport. Um, and if I have some time, I like to sort of escape from life, from family life, and yeah, I think everybody sort of needs that as well. It's tough when you're because my work is intense, and then with you go home and you've three kids and stuff, and then it sort of feels like you're all the time your head's busy. You're always thinking, and everyone needs that sort of time out and that sort of escapism. I think in the last few years I've had to quit playing football with injuries and stuff, and I needed something else, and that was when I started playing golf, and it's been great. I like to play, when the weather's good. I like to play at least a couple of times a week, and yeah, it's definitely a good release for me being the golf course because the phone's in the bag. I'm not one of these lads that walk around their phones during the course or anything. Generally, I like to keep the phone in the bag, and I'm in the moment, and I love it. It's a good escape for me, and yeah, I'd say that's really it. And obviously, sport. I'm a big Manchester United fan, so
Ooh.
I know it's been grim the last few years now. So I was going to say it's good to sometimes watch United, but I'm not sure about that anymore. It's been tough viewing over the last number of years,
Yeah.
but no, I would always watch United games if I can. So that would probably be the things that I do most. I'm not one of these people that watches loads of TV though, or Netflix and all that sort of stuff.
I was kind of thinking if you have quite a busy life and with Thrive and with working with people, you probably get phone calls and messages at all hours and things like that. So how do you switch off from that then?
It is difficult, Niamh. It is difficult. Like it's obviously it's all me in the sense as if I put my phone in the bag, it's not one of these things you can go on holidays for a week and leave your phone at home. Like that's just not possible. So it is very very difficult to completely switch off. It's very very difficult to get away from it fully. But at the same time, weekends I do limit the amount of work I would do. Evening times I, as much as I can, would try and limit that. But it's difficult because I'm working evenings, I'm home late, and then I obviously have to get texting all of my clients, and there's emails coming through, and there's phone calls coming through. So it's a difficult one. But look, I mean I like it. I love it. It's part. It doesn't feel like this doesn't feel like a job to me. It feels like
Way of life.
way of life. It nearly feels like I was put on this earth to do this. That's what it feels like to me. And I don't mean that in a cringy way or anything. Look, it feels like I just have to do it. It's me, and it's part of just like feeding the kids. It's part of my life, and it's something I have a huge passion for. So yeah, it's not like I have to do work all the time, or it is obviously intense and it's busy, but at the same time, you wouldn't be able to do this at this level of intensity and busyness unless you had some enjoyment of it, unless you loved it.
Yeah. Yeah, so you'd say that's probably one of your biggest personal strengths and has been able to do that alongside a busy lifestyle. Is there anything that maybe areas that you would still need or like to work on?
Definitely. Like there's many areas in my life that I could improve at. Sometimes obviously things do get busy, and it's especially with family life and stuff. You can get sometimes a bit frustrated, or it's very easy to get into that headspace when it can be quite overwhelming sometimes, and you know you can be tired sometimes. Like the day in day out with that level of intensity, and the always thinking all the time about like my work's obviously very intense and busy, and then you're going home and then it's like and kids run everywhere, daddy daddy daddy. You know what I mean? I love it. I wouldn't have it any other way, but it is difficult. To when I say difficult, intense is, I keep using the word intense. I think intense is the right word because you always think. You haven't much time to be present as such and just live in the moment.
Mm.
And I think that's what I mean by that in the truest sense. That's like escapism or that's resetting. So I do feel that sometimes I do get a bit, it's a bit sometimes a bit like right now you have to take a step back here and let's, you know, not get too
Yeah.
frustrated with this and
Because they do say that you should have, well, we all need time wind down, that we're present and your brain's not thinking all the time. So,
mhm,
and that's obviously where the golf and
mhm.
maybe them escapisms come in.
Yeah, and you need that. You know
Yeah.
what I mean? If it's like as you just said there, you're thinking all the time, and if it's not what client's next, right? Do this, do that, do this. You're coming home, and then it's like right at the house. So it's like it's the reality of the age I'm at and the way my life is that it's just very intense at the minute. And I'm not complaining about it in any way, shape, or form. No way. I wouldn't have it any other road, Neve.
Mm.
I wouldn't have it any other way. But it's just the reality of life. And I think when life is busy, you do need to, as much as you can, look after yourself because you can very, very easily get consumed with
Mm.
it, with it all. And it can be very overwhelming. And if you don't look after yourself and work hard at your own mental health, like
Yeah.
everything, obviously I teach in here and everything that I coach, I have to, as much as I can, to implement and to integrate into my life. Um,
Yeah,
I
you can't
suppose,
pour from an empty cup.
yeah, exactly, yeah,
Yeah.
and it's sometimes difficult because I'm feels like I do everything for everybody else. If that makes sense, like
Yeah.
all my clients, I'm coming home and
Yeah.
I'm changing nappies and I'm doing this and doing that, and I think sometimes I do need to sort of take a step back, and I do. Like I go to the gym and I like my golf and stuff. It's not as if I neglect myself, and I do work on myself,
Mm.
and I am very reflective, self-reflective, but yeah, no, there's definitely many things about me that I know I need to work on. Yeah, I would say I've mentioned the word frustrated earlier on. I think sometimes with a lot of things in life, I, me as a coach, I demand high expectations, and sometimes I get frustrated when that doesn't work out, or there's definitely certain areas that I could sort of, in hindsight, take a step back and think I could have managed that a little bit better, and
Mm.
and as I said, I'm trying to be as self-reflective as possible, and there's by no means am I perfect, Nave, so
Mm.
I do think as well, like even 5 6 years ago it was completely different because my life didn't. I wasn't married. I had no kids, and it was just Thrive was my life. So I was just Thrive with Niall every single day of the week. Whereas I think now, because life's a lot busier, I'm obviously different because I've so much thoughts and so much this and that and this, and maybe people around me sort of. I don't know. Sometimes just think, well, Niall's Niall, and Niall has to be Niall, but they don't realize that there's
There's a
obviously,
person behind the nail.
yeah, well, there's a
Yeah.
person behind the Niall, and obviously life's really busy, like, and sometimes that sort of context or that sort of
Mm.
I think could be, I get frustrated when it's not factored in or something, or if I
Mm.
can't make something because I'm busy or because I'm just tied into so much commitment and it's not, I'm letting people down or something. I just sometimes think I get a bit frustrated when that doesn't happen, but
It's probably because your time is quite important. Not
yeah,
that nobody's time isn't, but
yeah, it's busy
yeah.
just, and like
Yeah.
I can, if you're burning the candle at both ends, it's not, it's not sustainable. So I would, as much as I do, as much as I can, sorry, I would work hard to manage my own mind, and things are great. My life's brilliant, like, and I'm generally very happy in life, like.
Mm.
But I'm under no illusion that this is something that every single person in the world needs to keep on top of their own thoughts, their own emotions, their own beliefs, and
Mm.
physically, mentally, it's the exact same.
When you're talking about your life and managing work and family life, etc., what values do you hold personally that do you think shape your day to day life and how you keep them in line, I suppose, with your busy life?
Yeah, well, I suppose. Look, it's obviously I've always said to Rachel, like I always wanted kids and I always wanted family. The idea of being a dad was always something that I just couldn't I couldn't even imagine. Obviously you're trying to imagine it, but I always wanted to be a dad, and I know that's not very common. I think in today's world, obviously there's many people do, but having kids isn't as appealing, I
It's
think,
not
as it
really
used to be.
spoken about, is it? Yeah.
No, it's just not. But I always wanted to be a dad, just and I think when that, I always thought, oh, I'm going to be this dad or this dad or this dad. But I think when you have kids, you realize that like the values I hold for myself, like working hard and I do my best to be honest and to be as to be as honest not only with myself but other people, and obviously I've mentioned the word self-reflective there, to look at myself, and I'm always striving to improve. I'm very I think if you speak to my wife, she'll tell you this, like if I say I'm going to do something, I will do it, like, and I like to commit to things, and I put myself under I have demands for myself and probably for other people as well because I'm quite a strong-headed person. So they're all the values that I have, and I think when it comes to my kids, trying to get that onto my kids or transmit that to my kids. They are very young though, and I suppose the best thing I can do is live life to my values and live life the way I think it should be. As I said, I'm not perfect in any way, shape, or form. We all have emotions, and sometimes we go against them values. But I think that I think the best values or your best values will be transmitted onto your kids. I think if you live them yourself and they can see that, rather than telling. A lot of
Mm-hmm.
kids don't respond very well to being told all the time, but they'll observe and they'll watch, so they'll see it in your actions a lot. So I think when you talk about the people around me, my kids are the first thing I think of, because like obviously my brothers and my sisters or whatever, or, my parents and my friends, like they've got their own lives and they're not going to listen to me. So
Mm-hmm.
whereas my family and my kids, they're the ones that I would try and influence the most.
That's class. Yeah, yeah, it's a healthy environment um, to raise them that way. Is there anything that you would actively try to avoid or say no to that would come up in life? Is there, situations that you're like, that wouldn't be good for me if I was in that situation?
Good question. I suppose nothing really comes to mind. I suppose like there's obviously things that I know that wouldn't be good for me now. That like certain people that maybe ask me to go and do this or go and do that, maybe involves loads of drink or I don't know, it just involves loads of. It's just not a good environment for me. I think over the last 5 to 10 years, I have become more. Um, I only do things that I know is going to help me grow, and I'm quite, especially in the last 2 or 3 years. I think since I have kids, it's given me a bit of a, in the sense that I've realized that like my kids is the most important thing in my life, and I think I need to make decisions that if I make a decision and it's costing them in terms of time with them, like for example, people want to go on a big day's drinking or something, or and look, we all do that. We all, when I say we all do, a lot of people with stag do's and stuff do this thing, but it's like that doesn't appeal to me anymore in terms of doing any of that stuff, or spending all the weekend doing something else, and taking time away from the family. So I would say no to something that I feel is taking me away from the things that's good for me and the things I care about most. And I'd say that would be the so anything at all really that takes me away from them things, then I would say no to. I think.
Okay.
I think
Yeah.
when I was younger, I used to just do things because it fitted in with the crowd and it was good, and everyone else was doing it and blah blah. Whereas now I'm like, nah, that doesn't help me as a person.
Mm-hmm.
I need to think about me now, and it's not just me; it's also my family and my wife and my kids.
It's something you learn as you get older too, really, isn't
Yeah,
it?
hundred
Yeah, you
percent.
become
Yeah.
your own person. What's one thing that people might be surprised to learn about you
Oh,
on the spot here?
you definitely did put me on the spot there. I was going to say I have 3 kids, but I've literally spoke with them.
You're quite open
I've
anyway.
literally
You've
spoke
been
with
quite
them for the
open.
last 10 minutes. Yeah, I would say I was mental health coach of the year Northern Ireland 2022,
Yeah.
but I'm not sure some might know that because it was all over social media at the time.
Okay. Yeah, I should
And
remember that.
I got a civic award, I think, with the council there, maybe a year or two after that. So maybe people might know that, but
I think even you opening up about your own
yeah, that was
struggles, that
yeah,
was a big thing that I guess people didn't really know. So
100%. Actually, I probably don't publicize that a lot, so
mm,
I think yeah, that would probably be one thing. Yeah.
yeah. What have you learned about yourself from coaching others? You've maybe actually answered this sort of before.
Yeah, in terms of
Yeah.
what my strengths as a coach, maybe. I think. What's the question? Sorry, Niamh.
What you've learned about yourself from coaching others? Is there anything you've learned maybe through working with people you've begun to recognize? I feel like you've definitely answered this actually, so we can maybe cut this, but that you've recognized actually this is something that I really want to drive across, or this is something that I think you've answered it,
Yeah. Well,
working with particular people.
yeah.
Like you're saying you like working with me, for example, because I was easy to work with and
Yeah.
I suppose open. So you've probably already answered that in a way.
Yeah.
So
I
can move on.
suppose. I suppose just on that point, like, I've realized, which I didn't probably realize in my early days, was I can't change everybody. Like when I first became a coach, I thought this program and me is going to change everybody. I've realized that that isn't possible because it's not me that does the program. I'm the coach and I have a lot of control over the process, but the person has the most control because it's them that's changing and it's their mindset and it's their mental health. So I think that was one of the things I realized over the last number of years, that it's not me and it's the person that does the program, and I need to um, find a better balance between, you mentioned it actually earlier on, between trying to over control or trying to make them do it. You can't do that. So I think with experience over the last 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 years, I've just learned to know my role as a coach better, and to let the client do the work rather than me stepping in and sort of stepping on their toes a little bit too much.
Is there anyone that you've worked with before, any client that really stands out to you, their story stands out to you, or someone that you particularly remember as a success story?
There probably is a few. The one I hear actually quite a lot, and this may be a surprise, is a lady, Helena. She came to see me many years ago. I'm going from memory here now. This must have been about 2018, maybe, I think. Um, and she had a brain issue, a brain abnormality, I think, which happened maybe in the previous year. And she was having seizures every day and panic attacks, I think, every week, something like that. And she literally, my memory is very hazy here, because you're talking 7 years ago potentially, and she literally was avoiding staying in the house nearly for most of the time. And Helena went through the program, and I remember the first day I met Helena, and I've said this before, that I was thinking like, whoa, there's a lot going on here. This lady's very young. She's had a physical issue and it's a brain issue. She's obviously having seizures. Um, and the symptoms and the issues and the reality of where she was coming from was quite significant. And she was very quiet, and I thought this is going to be interesting how this unfolds. But Lena was brilliant to work with, and she committed to the program, and she made really, really good progress. Like really good progress. She surprised me. I don't mean that in a bad way, but she did surprise me. And she was really good to work with, and she made tremendous progress. Tremendous progress. And like Helena now, I don't keep in touch with Helena all the time, but I have spoken with her over the last year or so, and she's doing really, really well for herself. That doesn't mean that she's perfect. I don't know if she is or isn't, but I'm sure she has her moments like everybody. But from where she was to the first day I met her, like she has came a long, long way. And look, if I'm really honest with you, there's so many success stories.
I would imagine so.
There is, and I'm sort of thinking now, like, where do I even start? Like, there's so many.
That's great, though. That's great to be able to say that.
I know. No, there's so many. There's so many brilliant success stories.
And I think even when you work with people and thrive on a personal level, again, I don't mean to keep breaking counselling and things like that into it, but it's so personal because it is like one-to-one, and I know that counselling is too, but like, I don't know, it feels different. It is different.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. I think the thing about it is, right, which I've heard a lot, is that, and it goes back to what we mentioned earlier on, like I care a lot. I think people,
the client's not forgotten about.
Yeah, most people know that Niall's here, and he means business here. Like he's not here just to see me once a week and get paid at the end of the week. He genuinely cares, and he wants to coach me, and he really wants to help me. And I think that comes across a lot.
Yeah,
that's what I hear anyway.
Yeah, definitely does. What is the most rewarding part of working with clients like me? Besides the obvious.
Getting to know new people.
Yeah.
I am a people person, I would say, naturally, in the sense that I like connecting with people. I like talking, as you've seen.
Really? I'd never have guessed.
No, I know. I like chatting with people. And I think that is, and getting to know people and asking questions. And I'm a very inquisitive person, especially about the mind. And I like to know things and learn about things that I care about. And I think, yeah, I'd say that's definitely one of the things I like most. And obviously, look, needless to say, the feedback and seeing people grow every week, and knowing that you've been a part of that evolution and that growth warms my heart a lot.
Yeah.
And I get a lot from that. And I think that feeling is something that I obviously
thrive
enjoy.
on.
I thrive on, yeah. That's what I chase every day, yeah.
So the last question for you then is, what would you say to someone who's maybe on the fence about thinking about Thrive? They're not sure.
Well, the first thing I would say, I always say this, is go and have a look for yourself and see how good this is. I'm not here, and when I meet somebody now, for the first time during the consultation, I try my best not to try and say, "Oh, this program's great. It's going to change your life. Look at me." Blah 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 blah, because I don't want them to believe anything I'm going to say. Go on to social media, or YouTube, or whatever, or Instagram, and see it for yourself, Niamh. Like we spoke about about all the life changing testimonials. They're all on social media. You can go right back 8 years, 9 years, whatever it is, and you'll see they're all there.
Well, I remember coming into you and I didn't believe one word that came out of
And
your mouth.
probably,
And I remember saying to you, what is the difference between this and
that.
anything else? And you were like, you actually talked about the lenses. I always go back to this, but you told me about your belief systems and your lenses. And in that moment, I was like, yeah.
I sort of felt like I had to give you some sort of info there because you were
I was so like,
Yeah.
I suppose, defeated about it's the same crap all the time and how's this going to make me better, or how,
I think a lot of people, that's the problem. They think this is going to be a talking therapy, especially when people mention the classes in here. They go, "Oh no, I can't talk in front of people now," or "I can't. Oh, this has to be private now. We need to sit down," and that tells me the person doesn't know anything about this program. It's not where clearly we sit around and we talk about problems every week. So, yeah, I think the understanding what this program is, and the value people can get from it, like the evidence is there how good this course is. There's literally life-changing testimonial after testimonial. And like, if anybody, I can guarantee that every single person that's watching this today would significantly grow and develop from doing this program.
I agree.
Yeah, and I have no qualms or fears in saying that. But you might be a bit like, "Oh well, I'm actually fine now," or "I'm actually doing dead on now," or I think my self-esteem or my thoughts are all right. I'm feeling all right. That's all right. Yeah, perfect. But if you want to become a better, happier, more equipped person and live your life to the fullest, it's very, very likely you're not doing that. There's only like, what, 20% of people are roughly in the world are what we classify as thrive, and the rest of them are either just getting by and managing, or else they're big time struggling. So so the vast majority of people watching this are either struggling or they're just about getting by. But I can guarantee if they'd done an assessment today on their mental health, they would get a shock. Yeah, and I think that's why everybody does an assessment at the start, because when they get that 17-page PDF document and they look at it and I break it down and go through it, they get their eyes opened and they begin to realize, whoa, okay, this is why I'm here. And for the first time in their life, they begin to realize, like, okay, this is why I'm here. This makes some sort of sense to me. And these are the areas that I need to improve moving forward. And that's when you start to do it. That's when you start to make significant growth.
Especially because there could be some areas that someone's really thriving in and they think, oh, well, I don't need that. If there's not a person out there that wouldn't benefit in some way. Niall has had no idea what these questions are, so...
No idea. I'm definitely out of my comfort zone here. I'm in the deep area.
Thank you very much for being so open and honest and raw, and hopefully people watching this will benefit in some or in many ways and will reach out. And
Thank you, Niamh.
Thank you.
Thank you.